Okay, it's 9 o'clock. If we're ready to get started, I'll call the meeting of the Finance and Budget Committee to order. Ask that the clerk please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, aye. Present.
Iqbal,
Here.
Leonard, Sanchez,
Here.
Surges,
Surges here.
Thomas.
All right, we have a quorum. I'll first entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the September 30th meeting. Mr. Leonard moves. Dr. Iqbal seconds. Any comments on the minutes? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Leonard,
No, not really.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
All right, the minutes are approved. Public comment, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the committee? Anyone online? Hearing none, we'll move on to the treasurer's report. Mrs. Brady. Good
Good
morning.
morning. Attached is the treasurer's report for your review.
Any questions on the report as presented? Any additional information to add from the treasurer's office?
No, not at this
Okay.
time.
All right, thank you. Finance Director's report, Mr. Onzek.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start out by sharing some good news. We had just received word this month that the county, for the 5th time in a row, has earned the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association. And this is for the 2020 budget book. It's taken this long for them to review it and let us know the results. And we're in the process of working on the 2021 budget book, and hopefully we'll receive a reward for that, or a award for that as well. And I would just like to take a moment to thank Erica Wagner and our staff who've worked very hard on that to make sure that it met the criteria for the award, and also it's a reflection of the good information that's provided to us by each of the departments and elected official offices. Included in the budget, included in the agenda packet are the budget performance reports. There's quite a few variances that are listed here. But I wanted to start with the year-to-date general fund revenue comparison. Overall, we're down about $2.5 million compared to last year-to-date. But I narrowed down the comparison to just what I thought would be the most relevant comparisons and tried to exclude things that might otherwise skew it. So I excluded transfers because those are unique each year and they're not dependent on economic conditions. I excluded a comparison of RTA sales tax revenue because if you remember, in 2019, the general fund share of RTA sales tax was 3%, and in 2020 it was increased to 10%. So I didn't want that comparison to skew the results. Also, court security fees compared to last year, we didn't begin collecting court security fees in the general fund until July or mid-year last year. So again, that comparison would have been skewed. Prior to that, we had been collecting court security fees in a special revenue fund. And then finally, there were probation salary reimbursements that I excluded from the comparison because there was a significant increase in what the state is giving to the county between 2019 and 2020. So I didn't want that to skew the comparison. So what I have left then, sales tax revenue is almost $900,000 down. We have actually an increase in income tax and local use tax and personal property tax as compared to last year. Off-track wagering is down, investment income is down. The county board revenue, which represents gathering permit fees, is down. Information technology revenue is down, but that may be more a result of timing. Building management revenue, that's the rents that they collect. That is probably the result of timing as well. and supervisor of assessments. I believe that revenue is a result of timing as well. County clerk revenue is down by about 116,000. And on the other hand, recorder revenue is up by 110,000. Judiciary and courts revenue is up by 58,000. And then circuit clerk, this is where I think you're seeing one of the impacts of the courts having been shut down, is down almost $1 million. State's attorney revenue and public defender revenue is up. Sheriff revenue is down by 424,000. And development revenue compared to last year is down 237,000. And then that left a few small minor variances that total $12,000. So I think this kind of gives you an idea of where we are. It doesn't, of course, this is year to date. So what you're also seeing in this year to date figure is the normal revenue collection that we would have received in December, January, February, probably March. So it wasn't until April that things started to change. So we did receive the benefit of those first few months, and that's reflected in this figure, which I think softens the decline in revenue. So we'll be looking at this closely each month going forward. I then have within my report comments on all the various expenditure variances. There's quite a long list compared to what we would normally have. I would say the vast majority of it has to do with the COVID-19 related expenditures, for which we are expecting to receive reimbursement from the CARES Act fund. It's just that those journal entries or transfers have not been made yet. So I noted that as part of the explanation for most of them. The one area that will certainly need a budget adjustment for is the coroner's general fund. They're running about 17.6% over budget, over year-to-date budget so far. And I have already recommended that we wait until January when we know the exact amount of the variance in order to do the budget adjustment. I prepared the sheriff's custom year-to-date budget performance report. If you look at their year-to-date revenue compared to the budget, it is $1.2 million below the budget, or almost 39% below the budget. If you look at their expenditures compared to the budget, they are also below budget by $1,067,000, or 3.9% under budget. So that gives us a net unfavorable variance of 104,000. And of course, that would be attributable to the revenue side, not the expenditure side. If you just focus on the expenditure variance, which is favorable, almost 1.1 million, that is more than sufficient to fund some of the additional expenditures that the sheriff has recently committed to, in which he was intending to pay for them out of savings. There certainly is a sufficient amount of savings there to pay for it. If we look at the health insurance fund, the report that I prepared as of October 21st indicates that we've collected about $2.1 million more in employee and employer contributions than had been expensed so far during the fiscal year. And of course, this does not reflect any of the accrued expenses, which we normally calculate at the end of the year. So that would be significantly lower once we do that. The rolling 12 months cash balance is $6.1 million. And we continue to recommend that we allow the cash reserve to build up till it reaches a balance of $9 million. But it's been relatively stable, hovering at around 5.4 million. And it's only these last couple of months that it's kind of gone up a bit. But we also saw the same increase last year at this time. If we look at shared and direct state tax revenue for the general fund, I've focused in on sales tax revenue, and I apologize, I don't think my chart was labeled as clearly as it should have been. But that lower filled in portion of the graph on sales tax revenue is what the current year sales tax revenue is. And that upper darker or red portion that you see is the gap between last year's revenue and this year's revenue. And you can see that it starts, the gap starts, and when you move from February to March, this would be a reflection of the shutdown. It worsens as you get to April, and it continues through May, and then it begins to close June when things were reopened, and it's just about back to normal as we move into July. So it just seems to be tell an interesting story of what has been going on. I don't think it's as bad as we were anticipating, although some of the rebound could have been the pent-up demand that had been created during the shutdown. So we'll need to continue to closely watch that. If we look at other revenues, we see that compared to budget, for sales tax revenue and RTA sales tax revenue and personal property replacement tax revenue are all below budget, and it's local use tax and state income tax that are above budget. And so altogether, we show a net unfavorable variance compared to budget of $646,000. Court security fee revenue, we continue to monitor that. It still remains lower than what we had budgeted, and it's 43% below budget. We believe it, even though the fees had been increased, that this it continues to be below budget because of the shutdown in the court system. The county share of state cannabis tax, so this would be the sales tax that the state is collecting, and of which they distribute a share to all of the counties based on population. The distribution for the month of October was only about $3,000. So it's been a relatively small amount. Each month, year to date, the year-to-date total is about $29,000. The county imposed cannabis tax. This was expected to we as a county expected to see our first distribution of county imposed cannabis tax in the month of October. At the time I wrote the report, I was not able to find the tax that we had received that tax, and subsequent to that, I did look into it, and as you know, based on the memos that were sent out, we did not receive the tax because we did not actually file the ordinance that would allow the Illinois Department of Revenue to collect the tax. And as I learned and was shared in the memo, the next opportunity to begin collecting tax would be July 1st of 2021. And that's only if we're able to submit copies of the ordinance to the Illinois Department of Revenue by the April 1st deadline, which we have done. I received confirmation from the county clerk's office that they have sent it in to the Illinois Department of Revenue. And then in response to that submission, we should be receiving official confirmation from the Illinois Department of Revenue back. So as soon as we do, we will let you know that so that we can be sure that they actually received what was sent. The contingency balance still remains unchanged. It's $820,000 of contingency budget available for unexpected expenses, and $50,000 is still untouched to cover any adult prisoner room and board expense in the sheriff's correctional facility. Capital funds, I have a little breakdown included in my report. Building management capital funds are 34% expended. Information technology, they've spent 281% of the budget, but most of it was COVID related, and so there'll be a reimbursement for that. And then the multi-use facility budget is 29% expended. Regarding the 2021 budget, it was placed on public display. So it's met the October 23rd statutory deadline. And we're expecting that it be approved by the November 10th board meeting in order to comply with the statutory deadline of adopting the budget before the start of the new fiscal year. under the topic of the FY21 budget, I would just like to mention that there is an ordinance. I sent it out to you last evening, which I was not able to prepare in time to meet the deadline for placing it on the Finance Committee agenda. But this is the ordinance that authorizes the non-union wage increases for fiscal year 2021. In the past couple of years, we have passed that ordinance at the same time as the budget was passed. And so I've asked that it be placed on the Executive Committee agenda, and hoping and asking for your support when it comes up on the Executive Committee agenda to be placed on the County Board agenda. And this, just to briefly summarize, this is an ordinance that officially authorizes the non-union employee average wage increase of 2%. And this is really for the employees within the jurisdiction of the County Board. And also the 2% wage increase that was included in the budget for the department heads. And then there's a few specific 2% increases that are specified in the ordinance for the county animal control department, and that's required to be specified in the ordinance by our county ordinances. So it's this exact same ordinance as was passed last year. It's just that the dates were updated to reflect the new fiscal year. There are several tax levies on the agenda today. It's as there always are. It's the same tax levies as last year. The amounts are different in the sense that there's an increase of $490,000 that's built in to the tax levy budget for new construction. And then we're also authorizing within the tax levy ordinance an additional increase of $210,000 over and above what we're budgeting. And this is so that we can capture any new construction that's over and above what we've estimated. And so this gives us the authority to capture that amount. And then it also gives me the authority to adjust the tax levy to match exactly the amount of new construction so that it's no more or no less. Now, I did find out Mark Armstrong had sent out an email that he had received from the village of Carpentersville, I believe, that there's a TIF district that will be ending at the end of this year. And so that may result in additional new property tax revenue that the county may be able to take advantage of. And so I will be looking to see as best we can and estimate what that amount would be to make sure that it falls within that $210,000 additional amount that we're authorizing, so that we don't lose out on what could be captured by that expiration of the TIF district. So if we find out that it may exceed this additional $210,000, then I'll bring an amendment to the executive committee in order to amend the amount that we're authorizing for the general fund levy in order to capture that additional amount. But at this point, we believe, based on the information we have now, that what we've put into the tax levy is sufficient. And then finally, I have just some highlights from the purchasing department. I'll just briefly mention here the bids and requests for proposals that went out. There was one for architectural engineering and construction manager, one for liquidity monitoring and treasury analysis service, one for landscape maintenance services, one for temporary employee services, one for interpreter services, for court services and the judicial complex, and then permitting software for the Division of Transportation. So currently there's 12 bids and requests for proposals out in various stages. Quote savings for September, the total, let's see, I'm sorry, it only looks like it's a small amount. looks like $76, so that's not much to even mention. But in terms of the estimated total savings, it's for the year, it's almost $2 million, $1.9 million in bid savings for the year. There were no vehicle auctions for September. And other than that, I think that concludes my report, and I'd happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Isaac. Mr. O'Shea had to leave, so I will be taking over the meeting. Are there any questions for Mr. Isaac on his report?
Mr. Chairman, this is Deborah Allen. I have a couple.
Yes, Ms. Allen, go ahead.
Thank you. First off, Joe, on the awards that we receive on our budget documents, that work is always top down. So it's very kind of you to give credit to your staff, but the fact is that you're still leading that charge. So thanks for the very hard work that you do. A second question is on the bids that are included at the bottom of the report. There's one having to do with employee services across the county. I just don't recognize that. Can you tell me what that is? And then I have one more after.
I think you're referring to the temporary employee services. So this would
Yes.
be, there's a contract, I'm trying to think of how to briefly summarize this. The county provides, the purchasing department provides, is a contract that's in place that various departments and offices within the county can utilize to obtain temporary employee services from. So for example, if someone has a vacancy in their department of an administrative assistant, they can utilize one of these temporary agency services to fill that position temporarily, or if they need an accountant, or so there's a variety of positions or types of positions that are provided through this contract. And I believe there were several departments when it was originally put together. I think it was a year or two ago. I don't remember the exact time, but they all submitted to the purchasing department the various types of positions they'd be looking for. And so that was all taken into account when the different proposals were reviewed. And so this year, they're doing the same thing again. They're seeking an RFP, a request for proposals for those services to be provided to the county.
Thanks, Joe. I just didn't realize that went through purchasing. I just thought if a department needed to hire somebody, they did. So thanks for the clarification. The third question that I have, my last comment is on the coroner's adjustment. It seems that the extra money needed has to do with temporary paradeputies. I get, wouldn't that be covered by the payroll reimbursement that we get from the CARES Act? Because I assume those deputies are needed because of COVID. So wouldn't those payroll expenses be covered by CARES?
It's possible that is not clear yet. I think it's something that we need to look at more closely. Why I'm hesitating there is because they're also built into the budget for next year. I mean, that is one of the things that the coroner had requested in the budget for next year, which implies that, they're needed beyond COVID. So, but, I don't want to speak for him. But to the extent that they are related to COVID, we can certainly obtain reimbursement from the CARES Act funding.
Thanks, Joe.
Before I get to Dr. Iqbal, Mr. Sanchez has a question. Mr. Sanchez, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. Mr. Onzik, you mentioned with the cannabis tax that you looked for receipts and there were none, no ordinance was filed. Are you aware of whose responsibility it was to file that ordinance with the state?
I really can't speak to that. I wish, I mean, I can't point the finger at a specific person and say, oh, they should have done it. I just know that it wasn't done. I wished I could answer that question, but I'm sorry, but I
Okay.
can't.
And the next deadline is in 2021. There's no possibility of still being included for this year.
Not as far as the Illinois Department of Revenue is stating. I think they're very strict about their deadlines. There's two opportunities to begin collecting sales tax. One is January 1st and one is July 1st. And it's dependent upon submitting the required documentation by either the October 1st or the April 1st deadline. So we missed the October 1st deadline. Which would have allowed the sales tax to kick in January 1st. So now the next opportunity is the April 1st deadline. And as I mentioned, we have already submitted it. So assuming they do receive it, there should be no problem for July 1st.
All right, thank you. Yeah, what a shame.
Chairman Lawson?
I'm sorry, on the point of the cannabis tax, thank you, Mr. Sanchez, for raising that. It is very important. As you know, I sent out a note. Actually, Blair, could you put up I think it's the third slide, just to try to estimate what that oversight's going to cost us. I think that our objective at this point, or there's really two objectives. One is to analyze what happened, which is the point that you're on, and then to minimize or mitigate the loss that we're going to suffer from that. In the end, legal advice and compliance with the statutes is certainly State's Attorney's Office responsibilities. Within State's Attorney's Office, that's the Civil Division, that's Joe Lulvis in charge. I took the actual Illinois cannabis sales from public documents from January 1st to September 30th. And these are just assumptions. I'm likely, off, but anybody would like to make other assumptions, I'm certainly open to those. And then projected the cannabis sales, and excuse me for misspelling cannabis, but with no growth. I think the last month of September was something like $67 million Illinois statewide, and just taking that times the 9 months until June 30th, assuming that we get everything in shape for July 1st start to collect it, that'd be no growth. That's 603 million. The actual up to September 30th was 432. So it's about $1 billion of sales projected during that period of time. King County is approximately 4.2%. That's 532,000 divided by about 12.6 million people. And then the tax on the sales, if I remember this correctly, it's about 2.5%. So the potential lost sales tax, this is $1 million error. Do we have someone from the State's Attorney's Office on the line for this month's Finance Committee meeting? Certainly they've been invited. I sent over the analysis that I sent to all of the board members. I do want to make it perfectly clear to everyone here and on the phone, including the public, that this is not a general county error, but rather a specific individual failure due to either an incompetence or a carelessness. I don't know if there's and the place where the finance department gathers information and it presents information. It is not like in a corporation where there's also executive or executing kinds of responsibilities. In Mark Van Kerkhoff's area of development, he accommodated when the ordinance was drafted, resolutions were drafted to move those along for zoning and for the tax. Because of the deadlines that were necessary, I believe before October, he helped put those on the development committee, and it went through the normal process and was then approved by the board. The county clerk's office, they're like the library where we store all those. And I know that Jack Cunningham relies on the State's Attorney's Office for legal advice, where all legal advice and responsibility rests in the State's Attorney's Office. So they receive things, but unless they're told and informed about statutory compliance, they're certainly not going to do anything about it. So at this point, what we do is we figure out, well, what hit us? How bad is it? And is there a way, as you addressed earlier, is there a way to minimize that? I think Joe made a good point. Joe Onsick made a good point that they are strict on the on their deadlines. There most likely is not. There may be a couple of ways that either the legislative committee can reach out to contacts, either in the legislature or the Illinois Department of Revenue, but we'll see where we go from here.
Dr. Iqbal?
I think most of my questions have been answered. I have one question. The board did levy the tax, but it did not approve any business to operate in the unincorporated area. What effect do we have on the Kane County portion then when we disallow the business and want to collect the revenue? How does it work?
I'm just want to make sure I'm understanding your question. So are you asking what happens if the county does allow business to be opened in the unincorporated area, or?
Yeah, the county did not allow any
Right.
business,
Right.
but we are asking that we will get a revenue.
Well, the revenue that the county would receive would be for those businesses that are operating within the incorporated areas of the county. And that's, I think, the 2.5% rate that was approved by the board.
But there aren't that many dispensaries operating in the incorporated areas. There are maybe one or two, and they cannot generate $1 million of tax.
Well, these Joe, you're having to, describe my assumptions of trying to project. I am totally open to any other estimates. We're trying to get a handle on, well, what does this mean for the county? It's not just, as you're mentioning, it's not just dispensary sales in the unincorporated area. I believe that we get an extra tax in that, if I understand it correctly. I'm no expert, certainly, in that area. But I believe that this is like an override, a county, by state statute, an override on all county. And I know that the Aurora dispensaries, and I know that there are several, but I don't have a solid estimate. We learned of this on Monday. We learned of this on Friday, late afternoon, about 4:45. And so this is as much up to date with as much, common sense of trying to figure out, well, what are these? If you would want to take a shot at projecting, well, okay, what does this mean roughly? I mean, we don't have the figures from the dispensaries, but these are estimated potential lost sales tax ? On the chart.
Okay.
Any
Mr.
other
Chairman?
questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Deborah Allen.
Yes, Ms. Allen.
The irony here is that we carefully discussed this and decided to use 2.5% rather than, I think, the 3% we could have charged, because we wanted to invite businesses into our county, make our county a more receptive place. And then here it turns out that we don't even get the advantage of that. It's, I don't know, if there's any gallows humor, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Any other questions on this topic? The one concern I have, and Mr. Sanchez brought it up, Dr. Iqbal, and some of the other people, Ms. Allen, is, I understand that potentially it looks like we're going to be out over $1 million in county-imposed cannabis tax. I'd like to find out where this problem was created, what the cause of it was, and then find out if in fact there's anybody in the county that may have some ability to ask for reconsideration of this cannabis tax money. If anybody knew or had relationships in the Illinois Department of Revenue or knew the executive director, and they could possibly appeal to them for reconsideration, it would be great. I think what we have to do at this point is admit we as a county made a mistake, try to define where that mistake originated from, and then ask for reconsideration from the Illinois Department of Revenue. So if there are any other questions or concerns on that, please voice them now. If not, we're going to move on to our fiscal year 2021 budget.
Chairman Leonard, Mr. Surges here.
Yes, Mr. Surges.
I think we'd be foolish to not make another run at this. Regardless of where the error occurred, the intent was always there, and we did everything, accordingly. If we just missed a filing, then by all means, let's figure out who the best suited person is or department is, and let's see if we can get a true up on that.
Yes, I agree, and I think that's what we should do. Any other concerns from anyone present or on the phone?
Mr. Chairman, Deborah Allen again.
Yes, Ms. Allen.
My concern is this: the Illinois Department of Revenue, it says to the businesses, here are the taxes that you need to collect. And our problem is that these businesses didn't know that they needed to collect this money. So how do you go back and get the customers to pay these taxes after the fact? I think that's the problem of trying to go back and collect the money.
Yeah,
That's a very valid
thank you.
consideration. Excuse me?
Surges here, Deb. That's an excellent point. I'm kind of looking at this saying, if you would go to a dispensary and make a purchase, would there be line items for all the taxing bodies that are on there? And if they didn't collect, we wouldn't be entitled to that. But if they did collect, then I would expect that we would.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Field trip?
Very good points. Anyone else have a question? If not, then I think what we have to do is take a look at if we have any possible appeal process. I think the points brought up by the committee are all very valid and good. So we'll have to pursue this a little bit further. And any input from the state's attorney's office in giving us direction on this would be very helpful. So thank you all for your discussion and consideration on that. Now we're going to move on to the monthly report and our fiscal 21 budget. Our first ordinance is adopting the fiscal year 2021 annual appropriations. I need a motion on that. Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Allen seconds.
Seconded by Ms. Allen. Any questions, thoughts, concerns about that? If not, all those in favor, please, roll call, please, Karen.
Iqbal,
Well, yes.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges.
Surges, yes.
Okay, passes.
Okay, the ordinance is passed. Moving on to resolution number 2, adopting a tax levy for the general fund. I need a motion and a second on that. Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Allen seconds.
Ms. Allen. Any questions on that? This general fund tax levy is for $32,275,532. Seeing no questions, hearing none. Karen, please do the roll call.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Iqbal,
Well, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges.
Surges, yes.
Passes.
Resolution passes. Moving on to adopting a tax levy for the Illinois, or a tax levy for the Insurance Liability Fund. This is in the amount of $5,561,000. I need a motion and a second on that. Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Allen second.
Ms. Allen. Any questions on that? Concerns? Hearing none and seeing none, please do the roll, Karen.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Moving on, excuse me?
Mr. Chairman, this is Deborah Allen. I know
Yes.
that we have to do these individually at the county board level. Do we also have to do them individually here?
You know, I'm not sure. We might be able to do all of them in a group. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of the amounts that we're levying on the different departments. If it would be the committee's pleasure, I'd be happy to do them all at once.
Mr. Chairman, I defer to you.
Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. So what we're going to do then is we're going to go on the agenda list, resolution number 5 through resolution 19. These are all adopting tax levies for the Social Security Fund, the County Highway Fund, the County Bridge Fund, the County Highway Matching Fund, the County Health Fund, the Veterans Commission Fund, the Mill Creek Special Services Area, the Shirewood Farm Special Services Area, the Wildwood West Special Billing Area, the Cheval de Sale Special Billing Area, the Plank Road Estates Special Billing Area, the Exposition View Special Billing Area, the Pasadena Drive Special Billing Area, the Tamara Dipman Special Billing Area, and finally, the Crane Road Estates Special Billing Area. I need a motion and a second to approve those, move them forward.
I move all 15.
Dr. Iqbal moves all 15. I need a second on all 15.
Sanchez seconds.
Surges, second.
Mr. Sanchez seconds. Any discussions, questions, concerns about any of those 15? Hearing and seeing none, we will take a roll call vote, Karen.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Yes.
passes.
All 15 resolutions 5 through 19 are approved and passed and moved along. I'm sorry? I believe the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, I believe we did. Any thoughts on that by anyone? If not, we'll move on to new business. We have a resolution authorizing the fiscal year 20 budget adjustment and transfer from the tax sale and error fund to the general fund. I need a motion and a second on that. Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Allen, second.
Ms. Allen. Any questions, discussions, concerns about that? Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Is just to be safe, thank you very much, Ms. Minor, for bringing forward that we might have skipped something. It's one of the cases where it's better to do it twice than perhaps to, if we did overlook it inadvertent. Would it be okay with the chairman of the committee to call that one for the vote, just so that it goes smoothly onto?
Very good point, Chairman Lawson. We're going to move back to resolution item number 4, resolution adopting a tax levy for the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund.
So
I need
moved.
a motion from Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Allen, second.
Ms. Allen. Any questions, discussion on that? Hearing and seeing none. Karen, please do the roll.
Allen,
Allen,
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
passes.
Okay, resolution passes, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your help on that one. There was one other thing that I neglected to address earlier in our discussion, and that was after Director Anzik's report. I think Mr. Hanson had a question. I did not address that. Mr. Hanson, did you have a question for Director Anzik or someone else here about that? Okay, we can always get back to that later on too if need be, but I'm sorry about that, Mr. Hanson, for not addressing your question at that time. Moving on to new business, we now have a resolution authorizing the fiscal 20 budget adjustment and transfer from the tax sale and error fund to the general fund. I think we moved that by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by Ms. Allen. Any questions, discussions on that? Seeing none, Karen, please do the roll on that.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Our next resolution is authorizing the Child Protection Data Court grant. Need a motion and a second on that. Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Sanchez.
Allen,
Mr. Sanchez. Any questions, concerns about that? Hearing and seeing none. Karen, please do the roll call.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges.
Sorry, Sturgis, yes.
Thank you.
Resolution passes. Our next resolution is authorizing the fiscal year 20 Emergency Management Program grant for the Office of Emergency Management. Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Sanchez.
Mr. Sanchez. Any questions, concerns on that?
Just that we're always grateful to receive money.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Karen, please do the roll on that.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Moving on to the next resolution, authorizing a grant agreement with the state of Illinois for the Violent Crime Victims Assistance Program for the Kane County Child Advocacy Center. Once again, this is more money we're receiving on a grant, as Ms. Allen brought up. I need a motion, a second on that. Moved by moved by Mr. Sanchez, seconded by Dr. Iqbal. Any questions, discussions? Hearing and seeing none. Karen, please do the roll call.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Resolution passes. Our next resolution is authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services for grant funding for the Kane County Child Advocacy Center. Need a motion and a second on that. Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Sanchez.
Mr. Sanchez. Any questions, discussions about that, concerns? Seeing none and hearing none, Karen, please take the roll.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Yes. Sturgis, yes.
Resolution passes. Our next resolution is authorizing a grant agreement with the state of Illinois for the Violent Crime Victims Assistance Program. Need a motion and a second on that. Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Sanchez.
Allen,
Mr. Sanchez. Any questions, concerns, discussions on this? Seeing none and hearing none. Karen, please take the roll call.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Resolution passes. The next two, I think we will take together, and these are both intergovernmental agreements with Kendall County and Ogle County for juvenile detention services. I need a motion, a second on Resolution G and H.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Allen,
Sturgis,
Ms. Allen. Any questions, discussions on this? Seeing and hearing none, Karen, please do the roll.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Our next resolution is authorizing a revised intergovernmental agreement between the city of Batavia and the county of Kane for household hazardous waste collection services and the rider to the offer to contract with the U.S. Ecology. Need a motion,
Allen
a
mo-
second. And
Allen
Allen moves, seconded by Dr. Iqbal. Any questions on that, concerns, statements? Seeing none and hearing none, Karen, please do the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Our next resolution is authorizing a contract for the Adult Justice Center. It's a telephone video visitation system. I need a motion, a second on that.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Allen,
Sanchez.
second.
Ms. Allen. Any questions, discussions, concerns on that? Seeing none and hearing none, Karen, please do the roll on that.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Resolution passes. Moving forward to the next resolution, authorizing an electronic monitoring service agreement with BI Incorporated. Need a motion, a second on that. Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Allen, second.
Ms. Allen. Any questions on this? Hearing and seeing none, Karen, please do the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Our next resolution is authorizing a contract for liquidity monitoring and treasury services analysis. Need a motion, and a second on that. Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Sanchez.
Surges.
Mr. Sanchez. Any questions on this?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Allen.
I believe the response was that only one company offered to participate in this. Is this peculiar in some way? Or should we have expected others to bid?
This is Joe Onzik. I do have, well, my own understanding of it is that this is a very unique niche of business services that are provided. And I think why only one, I believe a second company did inquire about the RFP, but then chose not to submit one. And I think it's because we were very specific that they not be a banking institution or an investment firm in order to make sure that whoever would be providing us this type of advice would not have any conflict of interest, or that we could be sure that we'd be receiving the best advice possible, because they will be analyzing our cash flow and providing suggestions on how to maximize our investments. And they'd be also looking at the bank fees to determine if perhaps we could, if there's a better place for us to be depositing our funds that may be at a lower cost. So to make sure that there's no conflict of interest, it could not be a banking institution or investment firm submitting. And so that seems to have eliminated the competition. And the other thing I believe I understand is that this company, I don't know if the right word is was founded, but that's the word I'll use, was founded in order to fill that niche, because they saw that there wasn't such a service available. So with that understanding, it's not surprising that there's only one. We wanted to go through the RFP process just to make sure that there wasn't anyone else out there that we should be comparing these services to. And as it turns out, there was no one else who responded.
And am I correct? This is the one where we have to earn enough new money to cover their fees in order for them to collect a fee. Is that correct?
Yes, that is the understanding that we would be moving forward with if we were to contract with them.
Thanks, Joe.
Any other questions concerning this resolution?
Just to clarify,
Dr. Iqbal?
which item is it, to be sure?
I'm sorry?
Which item are we on? Number L?
We're on item L right now, the
Yeah.
authorizing contract for liquidity monitoring and treasury services analysis. Ms. Minor, did we get a motion and a second on this?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions about this? Seeing and hearing none. Karen, please do the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Moving on to our next resolution, authorizing a contract renewal for Mill Creek SSA office space leases. This is between the county and Mr. Shodin, and the amount is approximately $12,000. I need a
Allen,
motion.
Allen moves.
Moved by Ms. Allen, seconded by Dr. Iqbal. Any questions, concerns about that?
Just to remind everyone that this is Mill Creek's own money.
That's correct. Thank you, Ms. Allen. Seeing and hearing no other concerns, Karen, please take the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Moving on to our next resolution. It's authorizing a contract for lawn and landscape maintenance services for the Kane County facilities. I need a motion and a second on that.
Allen moves.
Seconded by Dr. Iqbal. Any questions, concerns about that? Hearing and seeing none. Karen, please do the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Resolution passes. Our next resolution is authorizing retention of Corrigan and Clark and Associates. Need a motion and a second on that.
Allen moves.
Allen moves. Need a second on that.
Surges, second.
Surges seconds. Any questions on that? Concerns?
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman, can I?
Yeah.
This is coming out of the admin committee, and I just wanted to mention that the general thought from the committee was that we will be building the multi-use facility into the new year. And to run the Corrigan Clark contract simultaneously made some sense, because then we are not reinventing the wheel. But you'll notice that in the procurement part of the report, that an RFP is going out for the next opportunity to hire an architect, and Corrigan Clark may apply and may win. But we're doing in the same way that we put out RFPs for audit services every now and then just to keep the system pure. We will be putting out a bid for a new architect as well. We will at least go through the process of who's out there and who will best handle our capital improvements for us. But in the meantime, while the multi-use facility is being built, we're just going to keep this contract running through June. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Yes, this contract is not for a full year. It's just through June of 2021 for the reasons Ms. Allen stated. Any other questions, concerns?
Yeah, I just want to
Dr.
voice my concern over what Cardone Clark has done and the amount of fee they have charged on this new facility. More than $1 million has been charged as an architectural fee. It's outrageous amount. I know this business. It's more than double. And for that reason, I would say no.
Respect your opinion there, Dr. Iqbal, and thank you for your comments. Any other comments or questions on this? Seeing and hearing none. Karen, please take the roll on that.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Iqbal,
No.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Moving on, our next resolution is approving the purchase of a non-OEM auto parts and supplies, King County Division of Transportation and King County Sheriff's Office. The bid number is 41-018. Need a motion and a second on that. Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Allen, second.
Ms. Allen. Any questions, concerns, discussion on that? Seeing none and hearing none. Karen, please do the roll on that.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Moving on to our next resolution, approving the extension on the contract for electronics recycling services with eWorks Electronic Services for 2021. Need a motion and a
Alan.
second on that. Alan
Alan.
moves.
Seconds.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Sanchez.
Sanchez seconded. Any questions, concerns on that? Hearing and seeing none. Karen, please do the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Moving on to our next resolution, this is reimbursing the King County General Fund for information technology costs for special revenue funds, outside agencies, and separate taxing bodies. I need a motion and a second on that. Alan moves,
Allen moves.
seconded by Dr. Iqbal. Any questions, concerns about this? Seeing none and hearing none, Karen, please do the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Moving on to the next resolution, we're approving the King County per diem rates for January 1, 2021. Need a motion and a second on that. Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Surges,
Mr. Surges. Any questions, discussions about this? Concerns? Seeing none and hearing none. Karen, please do the roll on this.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Our next resolution is authorizing the hiring of a part-time human resource coordinator. I need a motion and a second on that. Moved by Mr.
Surges.
Surges, seconded by Dr. Iqbal. Any questions, concerns about that? Seeing and hearing none. Karen, please do the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Our next resolution is authorizing personnel replacement hiring, King County Department of Human Resource Management. I need a motion
Surges.
and a second on that. Moved by Mr. Surges, seconded by
Allen, second.
Ms. Allen. Any questions, concerns about this? Seeing none and hearing none, Karen, please do the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Our next resolution is report of the September 2020 claims paid. I need a motion and a second on that.
Allen moves.
Alan moves.
Surges,
Seconded.
second.
Surges seconds. Mr. Surges seconds. Any questions, concerns about that? Hearing and seeing none. Karen, please do the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
passes.
Resolution passes. Yes,
Mr.
Ms. Allen.
Chairman?
Yes, Ms. Allen.
Mr. Onzek wanted to insert the resolution that grants 2% to our non-union employees. Do you have a time when you want to insert that? I am willing to move it if you want to do it now.
You know, I don't know the procedure on that. I'm going to defer that to Chairman Lawson.
Okay, I think that what we need to do, if we, certainly we can discuss it with the approval of this committee. I think that Joe's intention was just to let everybody know that it was coming. And then we'll put it in the executive portion, not the executive session, but the executive category of the executive committee agenda as a fresh item for discussion. So I think that that was Joe's intention. Thank you very much for keeping track of so that we don't drop any of the balls that are in the air Ms. Allen.
We worry about those things
Sure.
going through the cracks. Thank you
Sure.
for the explanation, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
It's a good motion. Director Anzick, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I agree with what Chairman Lausen said. It was my intention to have it be placed on the executive committee agenda, and I only wanted to make sure that you were aware of it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Ms. Allen, for the concern about that.
Sure. Thanks, Joe.
Karen, would you please do the roll on that then? Did we get a motion and a second on that?
So
Okay.
Allen motion.
No, we don't need a motion and
Oh,
a
I'm
second
sorry.
for adding that. I'll go ahead and, with your permission, I'll go ahead and take care of that for the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question was, did we get a motion and a second on
Deb
the
needs to
report
withdraw.
of the September 2020 claims paid?
Yes, Allen.
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. Seeing no other questions or concerns, Karen, please do roll call on that.
I think we already did, Mr.
Oh, we
Chairman.
did that?
Yeah, we
Okay,
did.
so we're done.
I
Thank you
butted
very
in,
much.
but- I butted in, but I tried to do it in an orderly fashion. Sorry.
Well, you did, Ms. Allen. Thank you. I just messed up on that one. Moving on to the next resolution, a recommendation of allocation distribution of the CARES Act relief funding. I need a motion and a second on that.
Do we have a resolution attached to it?
I think
What
that
are
was
we
a
voting on?
Placeholder?
That was a placeholder, maybe, yes,
I think this is a
in
placeholder.
case.
The placeholders. So do we need to vote on this?
I think that I would to put it onto the agenda.
Okay, good.
I mean, just,
Sturgis would move that forward.
Okay, Mr. Sturgis moves it.
Sanchez second.
Mr. Sanchez seconds it. Any questions about this, Mr. Chairman?
I do, I think that it's a good step to accommodate and facilitate, things, all the important action that's coming out of the CAC committee. It's not a huge item, but it is one that I'd like to correct the record and make sure that we're on the right track. And I'm not sure exactly where this is in the process. At Monday's CAC committee, I'm sorry, but I was falsely accused of somehow obstructing CAC intent to include VIA in the eligibility for small business COVID grants. And certainly that is not the case. That was false. Let's see. I make enough mistakes that I don't have to take on additional ones. I make enough of my own. I enthusiastically support VIA being included. I've practiced clear, consistent pattern and habit of placing all CAC items that are requested. I even make the additional step of asking chairman from that committee, do we need anything else? And even further, do we want anything else? And then we include those items. So I did send out after that meeting, and after, frankly, I was cut off from any further debate to clear it up at that time. The timeline accusation was made that somehow I fouled the process at the executive committee meeting, but it was obvious from the historical record that the CAC meeting took place the next day. And if you would, Blair, if you'd put up the slide, the correspondence. When Ms. Gilmore, who's the president of VIA, couldn't find it, and then she called me and I couldn't find it, I'm not aware of any separate resolution that's been drafted. I'm not aware of any language within the amendments that were passed at the last board meeting to include it. Certainly, I don't put together resolutions. The State's Attorney's Office, Civil Division, Joe Lulvis, puts together those resolutions. It was skipped. And so unless somebody has information that I don't know about that hasn't been drafted yet, and I'll withdraw my observation if somehow I've missed it someplace, but if someone would show. Now, what's interesting about this slide is that this was a couple of Fridays ago after the board meeting when from Joe Lulvis to Kathy Gilmore, as you see in the underlined section, the sentence that says, further pursuant to the directions of the county board committees, The application process has been amended, referring to her request to be included. And VIA's application is both eligible applicant and in the queue for processing. She's in the queue for processing, but as of even this point today, she's not an eligible applicant because she's not included. So instructions from someplace in this process needs to be given clearly to Joe Lulvis rather than distract by saying that somehow I'm obstructing something that I'm 100% in favor of. You ought to just do that work, get that done, and wherever that should be placed in the process, I am happy to do that. And that's why, again, I think that it's a good step to have a placeholder for anything, everything that the CAC committee wants. They're going to be accommodated as they have in the past.
Mr. Chairman, Sturgis here.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm just, in my motion, I was considering the placeholder for both the VIA and the email that we received from the food pantry. Am I omnibus enough that this motion places that placeholder for the next meeting or no?
Yes, we will do that.
Yes.
Okay, super.
And the interesting thing is that unless your instructions are followed by your state's attorney civil division, Joe Lulvis, then it doesn't happen. Somebody actually, after all this discussion, needs to do some work. And I just don't want to have a repeat of what we experienced at the last board meeting or at Monday's CAC meeting. But certainly, whatever the state's attorney civil division, Joe Lulvis, supervised by Joe McMahon, wants, they'll be accommodated in those agenda. It does need to be in writing.
Okay, I think it's important too then, thank you, Mr. Chairman, that we contact the state's attorney's office and make sure that they incorporate both the VIA and the food pantry in this resolution for the executive committee or for their next meeting. Any other questions about that, Dr. Iqbal?
Yeah, in addition to the two items that have been proposed, I read the newspaper today that CAC has money for the businesses and there aren't that many applicants and they are going to open that funding to other people or extend the deadline or whatever. And in that respect, I will add an amendment to what has been passed before at the exec committee, which includes all the businesses in Kane County. So there's no restriction that you are an adult entertainment business, you are not allowed. Or you are working at home, you're not allowed, or you are been forced to work at home, you're not allowed. My proposal would be to include everyone who wants to apply, and then committee could sort it out.
Hey, Dr. Iqbal, so that is an amendment you're going to present at the executive committee?
Yes.
Okay, very good, thank you.
So could
Any
you, Bill,
yes.
could you read back my motion so that we have clarity on what exactly we're voting for here?
We don't have the resolution, it's not included, but what we are going to incorporate into that resolution is the inclusion and acceptance of the VIA application and the food pantry applications.
Okay.
Is that?
Mo had a mouthful there and I just want to make sure that, and I don't disagree with him, but I don't want to dilute those two and then not include his. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we're not going to be able to include Dr. Iqbal's right now. He's going to bring an amendment to the resolution at the executive committee.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
So that will be separate. Any other questions concerning this resolution? Seeing and hearing none, Karen, please do the roll on that.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes, but who seconded this?
This was
Sanchez.
seconded by
Sanchez.
Mr. Sanchez.
Perfect, thank you.
So Mr. Surges moved it, Mr. Sanchez seconded it, and the vote did approve it. So moving forward to old business, is there any old business to discuss? Chairman Lawson?
Just so that I don't surprise anybody on any participation in the process, you know, the food pantry item, that's just they want to shift some of the dollars from one category of their grant application to another, not increasing the amount that they're asking for. And so, you know, to me, that's not a problem at all, that portion of that amendment. One of the things that I do think that the board ought to consider is that according to the Riverboat Grant applications, the compensations of executive directors and financial officers and executives at a food pantry where they are serving people who don't have enough to eat each day, you all will want to consider what allocations you make when those executives are, according to the document that comes from the Riverboat, $253,000 a year as payment to the executive director, $250,000 to run the food pantry. And then their financial officer is paid, I believe it's $153,000. And then there's another $140,000 to $150,000 executive in there. Now, that's always within a context of all the work that needs to be done. But at least one person from Aurora believes that that compensation is huge. Just background information. I don't want to surprise anybody, but I think that it is something that should enter into your evaluation.
Duly noted, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for those comments. Any old business to discuss? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to the auditor's report. Mr. Hunt.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the agenda packet included the 3 reports that were issued most recently, happy to review those very quickly. We did the Kane County Jail Commissary Service Audit as a response to the requirement from JCAR, and the audit itself actually led us to a spin-off audit, and we separated the Canteen Commission Fund Performance Audit from that because it was outside of scope of the original audit, but it also afforded an opportunity for the sheriff to strengthen his internal controls and his arrangement with the vendor who provides most of those services. So that was actually a benefit that we hadn't anticipated going in. We also reported on the efficiency of the Kane County Treasurer's Office relative to the tax collection process. The question had been raised at several meetings as to how the COVID pandemic had impacted those collections, and as it turned out, the treasurer was doing very well. I'm going to do just grab Mark's seat here for just a minute and take a very, very short while, because the COVID issue is going to be on everybody's mind. One way that's going to be really quick and easy for everybody to get to answer some of their own questions.
We just lost Mr. Hunt.
How about that? Can you hear me now?
Oh, that's better. Thank you.
Okay, it works better with the button turned on.
Everything.
Okay, so if we go to the Kane County Open Finance homepage, and hopefully everybody can see this on the screen. The first place I'd just direct you is to the panel that says budgeted revenue, $397.9 million for fiscal 2020, and click on the Explore tab there. And you can see then that it breaks out all of our revenues for the current fiscal year, but because there are differences between the dark green arrow or dark green bar in the graph and the light green, there's a comparison between the amended budget and actual revenue. The easiest way to track this one, though, is to go up here at the revenue type, change that to source. And you can see then that the top line becomes the Coronavirus Relief CARES Act. And if you hover over that, you're going to get a $92.9 million in the amended budget and the actual revenue, which includes the interest earned to date. And if you don't like looking at it in that format, you can go over to the right and click on the pie chart. You get the same sort of thing. Hover over the section that's applicable and it'll provide you detail and you can drill down into it. The other area, and we'll go back here in that left-hand panel, go back to the home page. If we scroll down into the expenditure panel, so where it says fiscal year spending 126.96, click on the Explore panel button here. And let's change the look here from that graph, which isn't as useful here, to the checkbook code. And so it's going to take the same information, put it more into a format that you're more familiar with. If we just go here to the filter by department and just start to type in health, it will isolate the health department. And if we want to get to a specific area within the description column here, click on the health COVID tracing. It will focus and filter just down to that. And you can see that we have spent $1.7 million so far. These are actual dollars expended. That's not necessarily related to the allocations that you're going to be voting on at the next executive. Just lots of ways you can go through this. The filters allow you to focus. You can choose any number of combinations here, and I don't want to belabor it, but I just want to run through the options, and if you see them demonstrated, it might make it easier for you to navigate the site. So that's really all I had to add there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Appreciate it. Any questions from Mr. Hunt? Mr. Chairman?
I'm amazed at how powerful that program is, how clear it is. I mean, real straightforward. So thanks very much for the work on it, and everybody who participates in producing that for our constituents. It's amazing good. Can you imagine the state finances being that clear, where everybody can look over your shoulder for every penny, and then it's broken down so simply? So thanks.
Mr. Hunt, thank you for the short course. These are really fun when you steer us through the program. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And we certainly invite feedback from the board members and ways that we can either make this more powerful or make it easier for you to navigate. So we appreciate the feedback.
Terry, Cliff Sturgis here. I say it often, but thank you for all you do in making this transparent for us. You make it look easy, man.
Thank you, Cliff.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. Anything else from Mr. Hunt? You know, I just wanted to regress for 1 minute on Resolution W, which was the place card for the allocation of the CARES money. I guess we did not have to vote on that. We did vote on that, but obviously we'll move forward a statement that there was a consensus agreement to move that forward. Moving on to the reports to be placed on file, I need a motion and a second to do that. Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by Ms. Allen.
Sure.
Any questions? All those in favor, Karen, please do roll.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Sturgis.
Yes.
Okay, the reports are placed in file. Thank you. We have no need for executive session today, so I need a motion and a second to adjourn. Moved by Dr. Iqbal, seconded by
Sturgis.
Mr. Sturgis. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.